At 10:42 p.m., a final message left her phone, and then Andi Wagner's life fractured into silence. Andi Wagner was 24 years old, known for kindness, generosity, and protecting those who couldn't protect themselves. That night, she wasn't supposed to disappear. She was supposed to come back. Instead, something violent intervened. She returned home briefly, packed for barely 10 minutes, avoided questions, and walked out. That moment would later feel like a ticking clock. Her family replayed it again and again, searching for a warning they missed. But what they didn't know was that the danger wasn't in what she took with her. It was waiting for her outside. Andi was struggling with addiction, but she was also planning a new life. Texas. Sobriety. Family support. Denial always comes first. Andi's family tried to rationalize the silence. She'd struggled before. She'd disappeared briefly before. She'd always come back. But this time felt different. Each passing hour made the fear heavier. 6 days later, the call was finally made to Evansville Police Department. By then, time had already stolen something vital. And that's where the case took a turn. Officers took the report, but urgency felt muted. No body, no blood, no confirmed crime scene. Yet patterns matter, and Andi breaking hers was a red flag. She never cut contact. She never vanished without a word. The lack of immediate action planted anger alongside fear. And still, no answers. But what happened next changed everything. Because silence like this doesn't happen by accident. It protects someone. And that meant Andi hadn't just disappeared. Someone knew exactly what happened to her. Investigators began reconstructing Andi's final hours, because somewhere inside that timeline was the truth. She left home, then appeared nearly 40 minutes away in Oakland City. Why there? Who was she meeting? No one could explain it. Unexplained movement is dangerous, because it often ends in violence. And this is where the case took a turn. Digital trails were examined. Phone pings. App activity. Partial deletions. Some data survive, but not enough to tell a clean story. Gaps remained, and gaps are where crimes hide. Friends were questioned. Acquaintances went silent. Stories shifted. Leads dissolved. And that's where things got darker. The possibility that Andi had been killed surfaced quietly, then grew louder. Families hate that word. Killed. Murdered. It feels final. But logic demanded it. People planning recovery don't vanish into nothing. People chasing new beginnings don't abandon everyone they love. But what happened next changed everything. Because technology doesn't forget the way people do. Old data was about to be examined in new ways. Somewhere inside it, a detail waited patiently, small, precise, and powerful enough to drag the truth back into the light. Cold cases don't fail because of missing facts. They fail because urgency evaporates. Andi's file grew thicker while movement slowed. Leads dried up. Calls stopped. For her family, grief transformed into fury. They weren't just losing Andi, they were losing time. And time erases killers' footprints. And that's where things got darker. Analysts quietly revisited old data. Location pings were remapped. A vehicle appeared near one key area more than once. It wasn't proof, but it was a pattern. Patterns catch killers. But what they didn't know was whether that vehicle belonged to a witness, an accomplice, or the person who murdered Andi. Interviews reopened. One name surfaced repeatedly, then vanished from reports. But what happened next changed everything. Because once investigators believed trust was exploited, the circle shrinks quickly. Friends become suspects. Helpers become predators. And someone, somewhere, realized the walls were closing in. Suspect development changes everything. Suddenly, horror has a face, even if it remains unnamed. Investigators believed Andi was killed shortly after her last confirmed sighting. The conclusion wasn't announced publicly, but it guided decisions. You don't search for the living the same way you search for the dead. And that's where things got darker. Search strategies shifted quietly. Areas tied to the suspect profile were examined. Routes were mapped. Properties noted. Places where mistakes happened were scrutinized. Nothing surfaced. No remains. No weapon. No confession. Just a heavy certainty that Andi had been murdered and hidden carefully. The family sensed the shift. Language changed. Hope softened into preparation for the worst. That psychological whiplash is brutal. Grieving without proof traps families in limbo. No goodbye. No justice. Just endless waiting. Prosecutors hesitated. Circumstantial cases collapse easily. One wrong move alerts a killer. 1 week trial risks acquittal forever. So they waited. And waiting drained momentum. And that's where things got darker. Just the unbearable knowledge that Andi's killer was living freely, counting on time to erase her. But her family refused to let that happen. Persistence became their weapon. Because sometimes justice doesn't arrive loudly. Sometimes it arrives slowly, with devastating precision. Public attention fuels justice, and Andi's case was starving. Without headlines, pressure fades. Without pressure, suspects relax. Investigators feared exactly that. The belief that Andi had been killed hardened behind closed doors. Living with that belief without proof is its own form of torture. And that's where things got darker. Her mother became relentless. She told Andi's story again and again, forcing listeners to confront the human cost. A young woman, a planned recovery, a future stolen, and that certainty carried a terrifying implication. Someone had gotten away with murder. And that's where the story stands today. Not with closure, but with a warning. Because unresolved cases don't die. They wait. And when the truth finally surfaces, it rarely arrives quietly. As years stacked up, the pain transformed. It was no longer just fear, it was exhaustion. The kind that settles into bones. Andi's family lived in a permanent state of unfinished grief. No funeral, no justice, just questions. And that's where things got darker. Investigators revisited witness statements yet again. Small inconsistencies grew louder with time. People forget details, but lies age badly. Timelines didn't align. Alibis bent under scrutiny. And this is where the case took a turn. One individual's story shifted subtly across interviews. And when it finally breaks, it will shatter lives on both sides. Because truth doesn't stay buried forever. Cold cases don't go silent. They whisper. And Andi's case whispered through data, memories, and guilt. Investigators believe the answer already exists. It's just locked behind one missing piece. And that's where things got darker. The theory now is chillingly clear. Andi was lured. Trust was weaponized. Control followed. Then murder. No chaos. No witnesses. Just calculated disappearance. The simplicity makes it worse. Her family lives with that image every day. Wondering if she was afraid. Wondering if she realized too late. Wondering if she called out for help that never came. That psychological weight never lifts. Behind the scenes, law enforcement waits. Technology continues to evolve. Evidence that means nothing today could become everything tomorrow. And this is where the case took a turn. Because history shows one truth. Killers rarely stay silent forever. They talk. Every unsolved murder leaves two victims. The person killed and the family left behind. Andi's family lives suspended between hope and despair. Years without answers carved deep scars. And that's where things got darker. They've learned to live with uncertainty. Learned to celebrate holidays with an empty chair. Learned to wake up expecting news that never comes. This is the silent damage no report ever measures. Investigators remain tight-lipped. That silence suggests strategy. Or weakness. The family doesn't know which is worse. And this is where the case took a turn. Because quiet cases often explode suddenly. One tip. One confession, one technological leap. Justice rarely announces itself early. But what happened next is still unfolding. The pressure remains. The suspect remains free. And Andi remains missing, believed killed, without proof. Her story matters because silence is exactly what allows this to continue. Someone knows the truth. Someone has always. Andi Wagner's story doesn't end with a verdict. It ends with a question that refuses to fade. Who took her future? Who decided her life was disposable? And that's where the darkness lingers. She was kind. She was hopeful. She was trying. Those details matter because they destroy the lie that she somehow caused her own fate. She didn't. Someone else did. Her family continues to wait, to speak, to search. They carry grief like armor. Because stopping would mean letting the killer win. There is no justice yet. No arrest. No trial. Just an open wound and a growing certainty. Someone out there knows exactly what happened to Andi. And one day, that knowledge will surface. Until then, her story demands to be told.